Why, hello everybody, and welcome to Not Funny Guys Presents Go Team Venture. This is going to be fun, I promise you. It will be fun and will hopefully whet your appetite in the interim we are having right now between our projects. So this is my Venture Brothers rewatch. Right now, I've got it basically planned to kind of go through the first two seasons. I want to go all the way. We'll just see how it happens, but for the fun part is when you're listening to this or possibly watching this, yes, there is a YouTube channel. There is a link down below. You can both watch this on YouTube and you can listen to it as a podcast. Both are made available to you, depending on whether you want to look at this face or not. But this is a personal side project for a show that I deeply love. And thanks to its inconsistent release style, is considered to be one of the longest, if not the longest running Adult Swim show. So today we're going to go ahead and just dive right in. Please like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. If you want to check this out on the YouTube channel, please go ahead and do so. If not, you continue listening to it here on the podcast stream, but this will be coming at you Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the next couple weeks. And today we're going to cover the first two episodes of season one as they originally were released. This is not counting the encounter at Turtle Bay, which I think is on the Netflix version. And you can watch the first three seasons of this on Netflix right now. I own them both on DVD and on digital myself. But let's dive in, starting with season one, episode one, Dias de los Dangerous. This originally aired on August 7, 2004, 20 years ago. Written by co-creator of the series, Jackson Pollock. So, let's have a summary. All right, so we find Dr. Venture. We're introduced to him. We meet his sons, Dean and Hank and Dean, however you want to say, and his bodyguard, Brock Sampson. They are down in Mexico, actually Tijuana, at the University of Tijuana, where Dr. Venture, Dr. Rusty Venture, is giving a lecture on the scientific method at the University of Mexico, Tijuana. He gets paid, of course, in pesos, which makes him very upset because he realizes all these zeros after his generous his generous stipend are kind of meaningless. Goes off, decides he has to go off and seek out a colleague of his, air quotes there, very neglectful of his sons, who he finds utterly annoying. Well, he goes off to see basically a black market doctor. His sons are given some money to basically go do something far away from him. Dr. Venture, of course, will eventually try to bribe this doctor, only to wake up in a bathtub later, missing a kidney, and then finding out that this has already happened to him once before. He's in big trouble. Meanwhile, Brock Sampson while his sons have decided to spend the money that Dad gave them on their robot helper, Hank and Dean decide to spend the money on him and basically get him a spray paint job at a Mexican lowrider thing. Brock basically goes off with a hooker. So we get a real interesting idea of priorities here. This is where we are then introduced to Dr. Venture's nemesis, the Monarch. If you are watching this on YouTube and you look over my shoulder, right over there, you can see my longtime bobblehead of the Monarch. If not, you'll just have to imagine it's there. We also meet his doctor girlfriend and his henchman, particularly the henchman Speedy, who is desperately eager to earn his wings, and it gets a little overzealous when they are sent to observe Dr. Venture. Particularly Hank and Dean. They basically decide to end up kidnapping them. Brock ends up throttling Speedy after he tries to take them down, and they drive into him a ridiculous amount of tranq darts. We're all getting this. This is our palate tasting for who these characters are. They think Brock is dead, and they actually shoot Speedy, who they can't ungrip, and they bury them in a shallow grave. Dr. Venture summons Helper after trying to reach other people, and has to then use Helper as a dialysis machine while he locates Brock and the others. He needs to find the boys. The boys are being taken care of by the Monarch, who's trying to reach their father and turning into kind of as Hank calls him, a creepy uncle. So Dr. Venture finds the grave. Brock is not dead. He wakes up. They go to rescue the boys. We find out that chupacabras are real and they're all over Mexico, even though the professor was trying to basically tell the people they didn't exist in his lecture. They use Brock's car to drop into the Monarch's cocoon and then proceed to massacre henchmen. The boys are saved, of course, by Dr. Venture, and the Monarch and Dr. Girlfriend escape in his mini cocoon. We then find Dr. Venture at the end asking the boys for one of them to give him the kidney. They play rock, paper, scissors, and the post credit reveals that Dr. Venture has obviously decided rather than just take one kidney from one boy because they both thought they won, he took one from both and therefore feels fantastic. Insights that I would like to throw out here just to get some fun things in here. I love this is a fun episode to sort of set things up and set things in motion. We have this taking place on Dia de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead. The Venture Brothers plane is also known as the X1, which we will come to find out other things later. The Monarch ends up telling this whole story at one point about how he was orphaned and developed a obsession with butterflies after he crashed in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey after his planes took off, and that's supposedly why he came down there. We also learned that Helper stands for Humanoid Electronic Lab Partner Robot. I don't know why that they just made that work. And of course, we also learned that Dr. Thaddeus Venture, nicknamed Rusty, was a name he gets from his father, who we, of course, will find out more about as we go on because his father-son relationship is kind of appalling. And not to mention the fact that when you add on to all of this the idea that Dr. Venture is himself a rather troubled character. If you haven't figured out, he's not a great dad, he's not a great scientist, he's not very smart. And this is obviously for most people introduced in a way that's designed. And if you watch the opening credits, you get the strong feeling that this is basically set up to kind of be a knockoff of Johnny Quest, which many people I think found I know some diehard Johnny Quest people back in the day who found that kind of absurd and didn't really appreciate it for the time. But once you kind of get into it, there's so much more going on. And this first episode really sort of sets a tone. And that's why I think even if you do go look at the Netflix and they suggest that you watch the Turtle Bay episode, I think that this episode, as it originally aired, is a much, much better example of where you should start and get involved in this process because it just presents such a strong and erstwhile like setting the taste for these characters. We have a clear indication that Brock Sampson is a womanizing killing machine. Dr. Venture is a weak, helpless, terrible father, and Hank and Dean are terribly naive. And it is worth noting that Dean is dressed like a Hardy Boy and Hank is dressed like Fred from Scooby Doo. And there's just something off about these boys. And I love the fact that they call it the Venture Brothers. And it's like very much centered in the credits around Hank and Dean. But this will get played on in different ways as we go through the series. This little idea of what constitutes the Venture Brothers will get a play on as we go forward. And I don't remember if this episode establishes the foreshadowing, but there is some dark, deep, weird dream sequences that Dr. Venture has. I know they start showing up in episode 2 that it's a really interesting force setting device for the rest of the entire series. So, we're checking out, like I said, Netflix. Let's go on to episode 2. All right, and we are back. Now let's talk about episode 2. Episode 2, Careers in Science. This originally aired on August 14th, 2004, written by the other co-creator, Doc Hammer, with a story developed by Ben Edlund and Doc Hammer. And so in this one, I absolutely love the intro to this one, primarily because we have the Venture family as a whole, the whole little group, Brock, Tank, Dean, Rusty, they are traveling to Gargantua 1, the ninth wonder of the world, which was a space station built by Dr. Venture's father, Dr. Jonas Venture, back in 1971. Interestingly enough, the entire opening of this sequence is centered around the idea of like a school film, something you would see, like some sort of instructional film. It's very, has a unique kind of flavor to it that I always find kind of amusing. It's like something you would have watched back in the day, like something on a reel-to-reel film. But they are there because they have come to investigate a blinking problem light. And I'm going to just say right out the gate, this is definitely not a kids-friendly episode here at all. Because we lead in with this extreme bit where we have Lieutenant Anna Baldovich, who is one of the two people stationed above the station with Colonel Bud Manstrom, guiding Brock Sampson into the hangar bay in their rocket. And it's quote unquote highly sexually innuendo driven as Brock pretends to be basically driving a large phallic penis into Lieutenant Anna Baldovich's very tight vulva. I don't want to be too more explicit than that. I'm probably getting in trouble with that. And this whole tension between them gets played out throughout the entire episode. In fact, she even comments on the fact that, boy, that's a big one. Yeah, lovely. This is not the first or last time we will, maybe the first, but definitely not the last time we will deal or see with Brock and sexual innuendos. It's kind of his whole thing. Once we are on the station, we meet Colonel Bud Manstrom, who is kind of really a pushover, considering giving his name, Manstrom. He is very much in the mold of a wimp because he gets bullied by Brock. He is immediately insecure and jealous of Brock. He seems to pay a lot of reverence and concern for Dr. Venture and the boys, even teasing them, talking about a movie night that supposedly went wrong back in the day and people getting flushed out and ghost stories, and it puts this whole thing in the kids' heads. Rusty is experiencing deep hallucinations, and we get this even on the rocket on their arrival where he seems to be hallucinating the whole sequence of the film, like the science film that you've been watching. Of course, he's taking pills for this. Of course, the talk of ghosts and Hank and Dean get real amped up by this. Eventually, there is an incident where people are pushing buttons, trying to figure out why the on-off switch that no one seems to understand, and then one of them actually ends up indicating and opening an airlock door for which Brock is sucked out, only to be rescued by Anna. Um, After she rescues him, she's talking about how it's so manly, he should be dead. They end up getting it on. Um, and the kids come across them thinking it's a quote unquote wrestling match until Anna takes off her helmet and they see her as she's obviously not a very pretty woman and they think she's a monster attacking Brock. And it's quite hilarious. You don't see anything, but the sexual innuendo is quite strong here. Of course, Helper himself is later thought to be the ghost after a blanket gets knocked on him. He gets ejected to space and gets sent down to space. I think he eventually re-enters later on. Um, uh, of course, Rusty gets knocked out in the control room and ends up hallucinating his father. There's a whole, since, Hank dresses like Fred, there is a bit of a whole Scooby-Doo episode to all this. Um, and it ultimately ends with Rusty finding out that whatever is causing the blinking light, it was seen in the film of Rusty playing with little plastic soldiers, quote unquote, helping Dad. And he finds out that one of them has melted onto some wires, and he removes them, and they think they solved the problem. Like I said, connecting back to the beginning here. The Ventures end up leaving the station. Bud Manstrom is outside with Brock when this happens, and he gets into a fight with Anna, and he's stuck outside. They're fighting and basically over his jealousy, and the Venture family leaves, and of course the light eventually then starts blinking again. This will not be the last time we see Bud. The last time we see Anna, but I think this is the last time we see Bud Armstrong. Okay, so we are introduced here to Gargantua One. We will encounter something of it again. We learn of Dr. Jonas Venture being, in a sense, here the real scientist, like in Johnny Quest, where the dad was the real scientist. It's kind of a fun play on that. We learn a little bit about Rusty's childhood, being dragged around as kind of a companion to his dad. This is a kind of common theme that kind of messed him up. And we're starting to get really into the more Johnny Quest-esque elements. But I love the good film style opening elements. And it's just a fun episode. So, that's where we will leave this episode for us today. So, I hope you've enjoyed our first dive into the first two episodes of Venture Brothers Season 1. On Wednesday, we'll be looking at episode 3 and 4, Home Insecurity and the Incredible Mr. Bisbee. And then coming Friday, we'll have Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Magic, where we'll meet one of my favorite side characters, Dr. Orpheus. And then episode 6, which is a brilliant episode, Ghosts of the Sargasso. So until then, hopefully you've enjoyed this. Brought to you by the Not Funny Guys. This little fun interlude, Not Funny Guys presents Go Team Venture. Please keep a lookout for this in your podcast feed. If you wanted to, go over to the YouTube, rate, review, give it a like, subscribe, and I will see you guys on Wednesday.
Say not funny guys again.
Not funny guys again.
No, can you say not funny guys?